Hello, and welcome to Calming the Chaos podcast, where we talk with people around the world who can help you find peace in a chaotic world. I'm your host, Tracy Canella, licensed mental health counselor, certified eating disorder specialist, and advanced clinical hypnotherapist. Calming the Chaos podcast is for those who want self-help resources and education. It's not a substitute for counseling or psychotherapy. So if you like what you hear, please subscribe and share it with your friends. Thanks so much for listening. And now, let the chaos begin. In this episode of Calming the Chaos, I talked with Adele Wang about the power of your own energy to calm your chaos and create new community within yourself and with others. Adele is a certified energy healer and licensed art of feminine presence instructor. She's also a musician in the Atlanta, Georgia area. In this interview, we talk about all things energy, and it really is a fun time. In this interview, we have a new conversation about chaos and the stress that's in our world today. And boy, is there a lot of chaos in our world today. And she talks about how understanding energy as a different language can help us all communicate better and deeper and be able to form better and safer communities. So let's take a listen as I talk with Adele Wang on Calming the Chaos podcast.
Hello, everybody.
Wow, that was energetic. See, look, she's practicing what she preaches, right?
Glad to be here. Wonderful.
Yeah, nice to see you too. It's great to be able to explore other ways to calm the chaos. And when we think about energy, we sometimes glaze over. I know that when I say, I have energy about this, somebody may say, like, what the heck is she talking about? Or like roll their eyes at me or glaze over. I don't know if you get that too, but I like talking about energy. I don't know about you.
Absolutely. I think energy is probably the easiest way to communicate. It's only that our English language is a little limited, but words are the best thing we've got right now. And my thought is as we progress and learn better ways to deal with chaos, stress, that we get better distinctions in what we mean to describe something we're already feeling. So it's not like we're going out there and getting something new that we didn't have before. It's just we're developing a better way to articulate and distinguish what everyone's already, we're all swimming in it, in the chaos, in the event, with people, with ourselves. It's already here. And the more curious we can be about it, the more useful it is. Because I feel like for a lot of people, English may not be our first language. It was always energy, this intuitive way of feeling in the room, feeling people, feeling yourself, of the knowing. And until we were taught that we were supposed to think our way through things, we had this energetic way of being in the world. So I just love that you're opening up this conversation.
Right. Yeah. And so when you say that energy was probably our first language, that's not too far from what I was taught as a counselor, is that when we're born, we're all emotion, and emotion is energy, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And energy is everywhere. And sometimes it can feel so abstract, our brains sort of, get scattered. What are we talking about? But our emotions are energy. Our thoughts have energy. Our body has energy. Our spiritual presence. I mean, everything is energy, and not all energy is the same. So by being a little curious and distinguishing between them, we can perhaps communicate a little easier, deal with ourselves and our own chaos a little bit more effectively.
Well, what got you interested in, or even aware that energy was a thing? And then this is something that you wanted to explore further. What got you interested and started in this journey?
Well, I wish I could tell you that I had some magical defining moment but it was really from a life of deep depression,
Mm,
anxiety, social awkwardness. I was lonely in a crowd all the time. And I didn't understand that. How can someone be lonely in a crowd? I considered myself pretty intelligent. I was raised to solve problems. So if something is hurting, well, you fix it. And that's usually applying some sort of knowledge, out of a book, a theory, a concept. You fix a problem. And I discovered after trying to do that with reading many self-help books and a lot of analysis with myself, I understood things, but I didn't feel any better. And I feel like that is one distinction that I feel like our communities are heading towards as we start looking at things at how interconnected people really need to be groovy, that we can't just sort of be off in our own little world, understanding our psyche, but not feeling better. So, anyway, I didn't understand how I could be so miserable and so knowledgeable until I one day, it's a long story, but it was a series of romantic relationships that kept blowing up in my face with this one last gentleman. I was madly in love with him. He could hardly give me the time of day. And I remember a click going off in my head that I felt like I had tried so hard to understand people. I mean, I had really applied myself. I had studied attachment theory. I had read this, I had read that, the Myers-Briggs, everything that I could find a model for. And it, for me, wasn't working. I wasn't getting any results. I just felt more frustrated and disappointed with myself. And I reached a point where I said, I've kind of come to the end of the universe of what's possible for me in understanding myself. And if I don't find another way, I really don't see the point in being here. I
mm,
mean, this man had broken my heart, and I saw nothing possible that wasn't what I'd already done before. Like, well, what good is this? It's not working. And at that moment, I said, well, you know, I give up. I had to
mm,
surrender. And if I don't find a way, I'm just going to leave. And through a process of very unusual coincidences and synchronicities, I wound up meeting some people that I had never heard of before. And I think it's because I was so desperate. I said, fine, whatever, do whatever. I was that open. And they really introduced me to a very different way of being
mm,
that used energy, because at that point I was talked out. Like for me to talk it was just spinning round and round and round. So my original healing had to start with a non-verbal approach. And
mhm,
if I started talking, they'd like, because they knew I would go off into that rational reasoning of what's wrong. And they knew that there wasn't going to be any new juice there. It was too miserable.
yeah.
So my own work had to start with the body first. And
Mhm,
then they kept saying, Adele, you're actually very good at this. And I would say, no, 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 I'm not interested. I was very vested in being appropriate, corporate. I'm an analyst, this and that. And then they reminded me that, I had a memory that I remember when I was little, I would see things around people and plants and animals. And I learned real quick to not mention it because it made my mom really uncomfortable. I think people thought it was either mental illness or I was lying and making things up, or it just stopped doing that. But once I started going for, well, what the heck? I remembered that and I said, well, maybe it's not crazy. And I started working with people sort of behind the scenes. I didn't tell anybody. It was this big secret that I had this big corporate job on one side, and somehow people started to hear something about me. I don't know. It's just, oh, Adele knows something, and
mhm,
people started showing up and I was getting good results with them. And at first, the healing was primarily physical because that was what I knew the best. The energies of the body, the congestion in certain parts of the body after chemo, disease, I had a lot of accident things, where the body's trying to heal itself. And I looked at it primarily as the energy of the body. But as I started working with more and more clients, I noticed that there was something else in the room that was also energetic in nature. And I said, well, I'm being called in this direction. And it had to do when people started speaking. And I realized there was a wealth of information of that was connected to why people were feeling the way they were or what illness they were dealing with. And it was intimately connected, and even more than I expected. I had heard about, the stress component, but it wasn't until I was working with clients and I saw how deeply this went. Did some more research, and I discovered that these lights that I was seeing around people had a lot to do with what was happening in the emotional energy of people. And that was very correlated to how people were thinking. They're slightly different. Actually, they're very different. And in our culture, we kind of mishmash them all together. Your beliefs, just manage your beliefs. And I started noticing how many clients I got that were doing a lot of positive thinking, positive affirmations. They're working really hard to be positive, and the body was just collapsing because they were lying to themselves. They were trying to fool themselves into being more positive. And so the emotional field was completely whacked out. It wasn't fully expressed. And then all these pieces had to connect with their spiritual inquiry. So I started to feel that there are different layers of the energy field. And then within each of those, there's a whole, there's a lot within just the emotional layer and the physical layer. And so I became very curious. And the more I worked with people around the world, I started noticing, well, I mean, you could call them pretty amazing healings. And for all of the physical recoveries I was experiencing, it was really people starting to feel alive again that got me more excited. Your purpose, your meaning, better relationships. And I realized that was my biggest Achilles heel growing up, that I was lonely in a crowd all the time. And it's because that drove me into understanding connection between humans. And again, I wasn't interested in clients. I'm just trying to fix on myself. And then when I saw what was happening with people, I started to pull out everything that I had learned from people around the world, medicine people, teachers. I'm like, well, this helped me. And wow, I mean, that's when the work really bloomed. So that's what that's where I am now, working with clients around the world. And that's why I feel our English language is a little limited when we talk about energy, but we already feel it. Don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And so it took you a devastating breakup and this history of
Mhm.
trying to be, sort of a pragmatic in your head,
Yes.
cognitive, maybe doing that sort of work, and knowing that that only went so far. And
It
and
only went
I
so far. Yeah. And it reached a point where if I couldn't see any more light, I didn't see any point in staying here. Because
right.
and for me, that was why maybe it wasn't the right therapist at the time. I did seek out psychotherapy. But what happened was we were just talking a lot, because I had such a clear understanding of my problems, issues, that nothing was moving. And now I'm aware that there are many different kinds of therapy. And at the time, I didn't know. I thought all therapy was the same. But now, and I've done some training on my own, this crossover of energetic work, body work, psychotherapy, I mean, all these things have value. And it's a really exciting time to be in this field.
Well, so when we talk about that end of the road and like, why even be here if I can't progress any further, where did you go first to even seek out
Yeah.
the solutions that you needed?
Right. Well, I'm trying to remember. There was a sequence of events where there was a medicine man, a native tradition, coming to Atlanta, and he was doing a lecture. And I had a friend who was really, I said, into the woo. Not that I was, and she didn't want to go by herself. Oh, come on, let's go. And I'm like, no, I'm not interested. You want to go? I'm not. And she didn't want to go by herself. Oh, come on. So I finally grudgingly went. And I'll never forget, everyone else was so excited to be there. They're sitting on the edge of their seats waiting for this guy to come out. And you know, I'm staring off like I'm just here, don't pay attention. Not that I believe any of this. And now I know that that much resistance meant something. I feel like I had an intuition something was going to happen. And
Mhm.
I was a little scared. And this man came out, and the whole time I was like, la, la. I'm not here. I don't believe this. You guys are all crazy and I'm not crazy. And I'll never forget, he kind of looked at me at one point and he said, you. And why? I'm just sitting here. I'm not saying anything. I'm not causing any problems. And he kind of looked at me and said, come talk to me after the presentation.
Ooh.
Oh, and I remember that my palms of my hands start sweating. I don't remember anything of what he said. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in trouble now. And afterwards, I grudgingly, I dragged myself up there. I could hardly look at him because I was angry and scared at the same time.
Mm.
Like, why me? Like, what did I do here? But I wanted to know, and he said, you might benefit in having a conversation with me. I'm like, no. And he sighed and he gave me his card and I kind of took it and put it in my purse and, I dragged my friend off and I'm like, I'm done with this. And I remember feeling very strange. Like, what was that? Because my cognitive mind could not absorb what was going on, but I was already feeling into the energetic of the room. And this is what I want the audience to know. You're feeling stuff before the mind knows. And once you know, I kept that card for almost a year in my desk drawer. If I'm not interested, why did I do that? And one day when I was still not over this breakup, I was just beside myself. I called him and he remembered who I was. He's just, get over here. And I remember driving over there just feeling like I had lost my mind. I mean, it was just like something out of a movie. And he started doing some work with me. And he was the introduction to a whole series of events. And I'm very glad that happened for me because, yeah, I was in a dark place.
Well, so you, in a sense, went back to your roots because as a child, you were seeing auras or you were seeing colors or lights or you were seeing energy, which not everybody has the gift of doing that. And I'm just kind of curious, did he see that you had that gift or like that you had some sort of a gift?
Who knows? At the time, I thought, oh, he just wants a client. I was very suspicious, right?
Yeah.
You just want me to pay to come see you. It's possible. I never asked him exactly. I'm not sure I wanted to know.
Mm.
I was just like, just whatever, and I was very, just do your thing. I don't want to know about it. But at that point, I'm like, anything that will help me feel better. I don't care if I have to stand on my head and recite something. I don't care. It was that bad. And
Well, yeah.
yeah.
I've had colleagues say that. I've had colleagues say, you know what? If standing on my head on the table and kicking my legs around and singing a song is going to help, I'll do it.
I'll do it.
Like you're at that point where you're
You're at that
so
point.
desperate.
Absolutely. And
Mm.
I think the circumstances, just kind of lined up that way because he opened my mind and I was very resistant about it. Like, not that I believe this. And he was asking, well, how are you feeling? And I had to grudgingly admit I'm actually feeling better. Not that I believe it. Like, I was still of two minds. Like, this is placebo. Like, my brain was all this, right? And then after he kept sighing, like, whatever, and we kept doing some work. And again, he knew to not have me talk too much because I'd spin off. But after a while, the work became much more engaged. And he left the area, and I decided to pursue studying with some other people who are very knowledgeable. And not all of them are big names. They're very good at what they do. And they said, you are really good at this.
Mm.
And I'm like, hey, well, and then people started coming. And at that time, I was balancing corporate and this woo life. And frankly, I think a lot of people in the audience can relate. I also feel like this energy, kids seeing energy, is much more common than parents realize. And if we could nurture that instead of saying, oh, there's something wrong with your eyes, imagine. I mean, it's natural. Just like the way I explain it to people, it's kind of like some people have an extra sensitive nose and they can work in the perfume industry, or you've got really good ears, you work in the recording industry. It's just extra sensitivity. It's not like paranormal. It's just some people can see it. Very normal.
I cannot tell you how many people I have met in my practice and with my own woo-woo-ness who have had that very
Yeah.
thing happened to them, and then they were told to be quiet,
Yeah.
and this is crazy, you're crazy. And so I wonder if that was maybe the block or the congestion that you described earlier for
I
you
yeah.
to engage upon some sort of a what's called woo woo or hippy dippy, whatever they call it, right? Hippy dippy.
Hippy dippy.
um
It's possible. I also think that I was so disconnected with my own energy, with me and people. Like, so the only time I could really be happy or see the full spectrum of energy fields was out in nature. So
mm,
when I was outside, I would actually see more, right? Because my energy field is relaxed, there's openness. But when I'm in a crowd of people, I do see, but I'm already tense. So so a lot of this is the more relaxed people are, the better the interaction. You're going to see more, not like you're like sometimes people try too hard. I want to see someone's aura, right? So they're straining. But really
mhm,
when there's a relaxed state, it just, you know, so I did not know how to talk to people. That
yeah,
was my biggest wound, and that was why I was lonely all the time, but
mm,
I was very smart. So I could hold down a job at a bank and IT but I was lonely as dirt.
mm. Well, when you say socially awkward, did you mean that you struggle with social anxiety? Because I know a lot of my clients do too. Like I'll go out there, but if I had to be around people, that's not going to be great for me.
I would say for me, the biggest problem that I'm sure a lot almost everyone can relate, I was obsessed with what people thought of me.
Hmm.
I was so desperate to be liked. I did not care what I had to do. I was constantly pinging someone's energy field. And because I had the ability, oh, this person wants this person wants that. There's a little,
Mm,
the codependent, I guess, would be the word from the therapeutic community. But that's how I thought you had to be with people.
mm,
You read what they need and you give it to them. And by that, by Jove, you're going to have a relationship. And it was
ah,
always out of balance. So I'm a specialist in
mm,
being obsessed with criticism from others, judgment. I knew how to yap. So, like, shyness can come from people like shutting down. I didn't have that. I had nervous blurting, like, and unable to really relax around people. And then
mm.
what happened was the more I knew I was doing that, the more embarrassed I was because I couldn't stop it. Like, I knew people could tell, and I was mortified. But I
Yeah.
couldn't stop because I didn't understand what my energy was doing. I hope
You
that
said you were
makes sense.
you say you were pinging other people's
Yeah,
energy fields. Is that
yeah,
and you were that was not a conscious awareness, right? You weren't aware that you were doing that, but you would somehow learn that that was adaptive
yeah,
in order to survive or get information.
yeah.
Am I getting that right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And this is very common in codependent
Mm,
situations. And one of the number one things I work on with clients is this phenomena. They don't know they're doing it. They don't know any other way. So it's like a blind spot. So if
mm,
you don't know what you're doing, you can hammer out all sorts of cognitive things and DBT and all, but you're
mhm,
not aware of what's happening when you're around another human. And I describe it as an anxiousness of feeling, are we good? And what did you need from me? And how can I help? There's that anxiety to be liked. Oh
mm.
my god, that, like, was my biggest hell for many years, and that's why I think just about every client I have has some flavor of that. I mean,
Mm.
it's the root of a lot of anxiety and chaos in this world.
Eh, well, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, and there's a book called Anxious to Please, and I think I actually own that book, and it's about that very thing, is that I am so anxious that you're going to be okay with me.
Yes.
And that was what you were going through as far
Yeah,
as the socially
exactly.
awkward blurting, all the
Yeah,
stuff that you were
blurting,
doing.
and I didn't even know I was doing it because if we could live different lives all at once, then we can say, "Oh, in this one, I remember what it felt like in the body to not
Mm,
do that." But all we have is a sample size of 1, me, myself, and I, and if you've been doing that since you were, a month old, how else can because this requires a rewiring a rewiring of the nervous system. It's not a cognitive thing. It's how the nervous system responds. And I'm sure you, as a therapist, you've probably been very versed in what's happening with polyvagal theory. I'm so glad finally that
Yeah.
stuff is becoming more mainstream. Although, to be honest, energy people, we've known that forever, but it's now becoming more well known. And even that is not the full Monty, but I am so happy that people are exploring non-verbal ways of helping people feel better. It's
Absolutely.
very useful.
Right, right. Well, and so the rewiring is really super important, not just to do in the cognitive realm, in the think, feel, and do, and this is how we
Exactly.
think differently and how we
Yes,
restructure our beliefs, but in the actual body and
absolutely.
including the body.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing I'm happy to see starting to change. It used to be everything was about beliefs. Everything was about mindset. I'm like, oh my God, if I read more about positive mindset, I'm just going to explode because I mean, it's not that it's wrong, but I would get so many clients that were down on themselves because they're doing their affirmations, they're thinking positive, and their lives feel awful. And so
Mhm.
if you don't know any other way, then you start blaming yourself. Well, I guess I wasn't positive enough. Let me
Right.
go off and be more positive. I'm like, oh, stop. Like, let's just relax a bit. I can be very damaging, to be
Mm.
honest. Like, if that's the only tool you've got, I mean, it's a good one. I'm not saying that affirmations aren't useful, but there are a lot of other more efficient and, from my point of view, faster ways to wherever somebody is to help move that along. Yeah.
Well, you sound really super passionate about energy, energy healing, and all that comes with it. So, was there a jumping off point where you said, I'm done with my corporate career and I'm just going for it? What was that
Oh,
point?
I wish I could give you guys some glorious story that, one day, a hummingbird told me. I was the most resistant. So I held on because I'm slow. So folks, I was not always this way. I was the most risk averse, shut down, introverted, socially awkward stress ball you can imagine.
Hmm.
I'm honestly, I mean, if there was a bell curve, most of the audience is probably well ahead of where I was. I mean, I was really on the tail end. And so what happened was I said, okay, I can do this. I can learn about energy and all this stuff and kick butt in corporate. I can do both. I
Of
really
course you
thought I could do
would. Of
both.
course you would think that way, right?
And there's going to be this big firewall in between the two. So they'll never find out about each other. And that way I won't have to make a decision. So that because that's the way I always did. I don't want to have to choose. I'll just excel in everything
Mhm.
and keep everything afloat. And that way no one may be mad at me. I can't make a mistake, you know. And because making decisions for me was so terrifying. I
Mm.
was convinced, you close one door and that's the end of it. So basically I was working a corporate job and the practice was growing, my side clients. And then it reached a point where I was pretty busy and I was pretty tired. And at that time, I was working for a major telecom company, and they had a rule from IRS. They brought me in as a consultant. I was making lots of money, and they loved me. And they said, Adele, we love you so much. And IRS rules have you limited and how long you can be here before we have to start the clock over in terms of whether you're an employee or a contractor. Can you take 6 weeks off and come back? And this was like around November. I said, sure. I mean, nothing gets done in November, December anyway. I was happy. And so I thought, well, the holidays. Then January came along and I didn't call them back. Oh, wait till February. And then before I knew it, it was like July and they kept calling. And I noticed I wasn't exactly dying to go back. I thought,
Good
maybe this
noticing.
is a sign. Yeah. So, yeah, that's me.
Oh my goodness. So you just
Yeah.
never went back?
Never. They kept
Mm.
calling and I felt bad because I did not want to say, I don't want to come back. I kept making these excuses.
No,
I
that
don't
was the
encourage
truth
people
though.
to do
You
that.
I don't wanna come back. Well, that was the truth.
Yeah, I made up all
Mm.
kinds of lame excuses because I just, so reluctant to pick a path and stick with it because you
Mm.
don't know what'll happen. Because in my family, nobody owned a business or a practice or did anything like this. Everybody was a physician, a professor, Ivy League doctor, lawyer, that kind of thing. So this idea of going off and doing something a little bit different. Well, don't you want to go back working for the telecom company? I mean, you were doing quite well. And the thing
Mhm.
is, I didn't hate corporate life. It'd be different if I was miserable every day, but I was all right. But I was more intrigued with this side. So I get a lot of people now who are making that transition from a corporate existence to something much more evocative, soul driven. They want to get out of the chaos. Sometimes they hate corporate. I remember having bosses that, oh my God, I was miserable. So I do remember how stressful that way of living can be. And they're
Mhm.
trying to get out of the chaos of, well, if I don't work for somebody, what do I do? I'm like, get in here. Let's dance with this. And then we're unpacking the energy fields, what's going on? Yeah.
Mm. Some people are fine doing corporate jobs, and that's great. But there are people that are just really stuck in the like, gosh, this is as good as it gets here? And what am I doing here? This doesn't feel right. And
Yeah.
just plod along anyway, right?
And my secret thought is that corporate life, let's just say, it can be very difficult. It's not designed, frankly, for the best of human expression, human potential. The model came from the army, basically, military. You've got one person on top, and you got who says the marching orders are X, right? And everybody else, you got the lieutenants underneath, da, 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 and you got the rank and file at the bottom, just following orders. Now, I think corporate is changing, but I still believe that for most people, it can be a very difficult environment.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of soul searching that has to happen. It's not a bad thing, but many people now are leaving. And I see a new type of industry, business coming on. We're in a very interesting time. So I love the title of your podcast. It
Mm.
really is chaos
Mm.
in a
Yeah.
in a very potential way, because things are breaking down,
Mhm.
but there's a new way of, no one knows the path. We have the great resignation going on right now, because of COVID. Where are all these people going? They're exploring. So we're all in the soup of chaos, and out of chaos comes new form.
Yeah.
It's very nerve-wracking and exciting. So I think this podcast is just what people need.
Yeah, and people need people like you too to give them other ways to be able to understand what's going on with their systems. And so I think when we think of chaos is anything but order. And so
Yeah.
we were going along before COVID, and there was this order of things that we were doing things, and this is the way we do things. And then COVID happened and it changed that order, and that was part of the
Absolutely.
chaos.
And
And
then we're discovering order doesn't necessarily mean happiness. Our Western way of thinking has order as efficiency
mm,
and no fighting. But my gosh, underneath the surface, whew, you know.
right.
So now we get to see what's underneath there.
Yeah, these rich forms of development could happen if we would just allow them, to emerge. And the chaos is part of that. And that's why I love chaos, is because it does disrupt the order of things. And in my view, gives us a chance to look at things from a different perspective and figure out new ways to do things.
Yeah, chaos invites creativity.
Mm,
Order doesn't do that.
yeah.
Order, invites more order. I mean, this is the way we've always done it. So,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're
and I think
absolutely
we
right.
we need both, and I think that we have been more on the side of order than chaos in past days. But boy, I'll tell you, if you look from maybe December of 2019 to the present, there's been a lot of chaos, and it's
Mhm.
not been all for that. It's been, I believe, a very good learning experience for a lot of people. And there's been a lot of really good positive change happening. I don't think everybody sees it that way. That's the way I'm choosing to view it right now. What do you think?
I'm on board with you. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
awesome. Well, I wanted to ask you then about your other self, which is the musical self. You
Yeah.
are a professional musician, and I want to learn a little bit more about that because I dabble in music too and have played professionally. What is
Mhm.
it that you how do you how do you do music, and do you actually incorporate music in your healing with your clients?
I do. I think music helped keep me alive growing up
Mm,
because it was a way to express energy. The limitation was there was a certain way to do it. It would be like the difference, like dance, for example. Ballet is very restricted, and same with being a classical violinist. There's a way to do it. So even in the arts, I was constricted, and now my music expression, I can do classical, but I'm exploring, I back up a lot of rock bands that come to Atlanta, Moody Blues calls, and I'm back there, and it's a different way of expression,
mm,
and I'm seeing so many parallels with how people are with music and art, with their
mm,
energy. So a lot of times, if someone is totally out of whack with their energy, I invite them to explore dancing because nobody has to see you. You can just, turn on the stereo, whatever music, and explore moving again,
mm,
because we are animals. We need our body. And what kind of energy is in there? And can we amp it up? Because that was very helpful for me.
mm,
Dance and music were just so helpful for me in my healing because they took me out of thinking how I should be.
mm.
Yeah.
How would you suggest that one goes about dancing? I'm thinking about the last time I really danced around was way too long ago, number one. And number two, it was with my kittens. When my kittens are 4 now, when they were both kittens. So it was like 3 years ago. And I used to have a string in both hands, and I used to dance around to music, and they used to play with string. When you were talking, I was thinking, like, where did those days go? And why did I stop dancing? How do we get that back? Is there a
Yeah.
tip that you can give us about that?
Just start. And animals can be great because
Mm.
animals dance with the moment naturally. They don't sit there and go, "Ooh, how do I?" A cat just moves, and so we can learn a lot from our pets.
Mm,
I honestly think pets have helped save humanity. In fact, I was on a podcast recently interviewing someone who specialized in this communication that
mm,
they still hold that innate movement of the moment. And so if we learn from our cat, we can, that's useful. Instead of, you see, now people have to check out books to learn how to dance or, even parenting. I got to read a book on how to do this. I mean, we've gotten so distant from our natural impulse that if we
mhm,
just try it. So there's no how-to manual. Crank on your best music. I
mm,
would say the number one thing I would insist on is that the music be something you really like.
mm,
If you
yeah,
don't like the music, try something else.
yeah.
That would be yeah, do that.
I'm just thinking about people out there who walk their dogs every day. I wonder if people, when they're walking, they just have their phones on or whatever, or even have a tune in their mind and they start dancing around. How different the world would look
That'd be
than,
awesome.
going to the dog park. And obviously people have fun at dog parks and everything, but what would happen if we all had a dog park that was also like a dance dog park?
Oh my gosh, I think you're on to something.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just open my own dance dog park and see how many people
Well,
show up for
well,
that, right?
we've we've got people in Atlanta. There's cat yoga. Bring your
Oh,
cat to yoga class. I mean, people are doing that. So
the
why?
cat does the downward dog,
Yeah.
right?
Or there's an excuse to be silly because you've got these kittens around you while you're holding whatever pose, and it makes people laugh while they're doing yoga, so that
Mm,
yoga doesn't become too serious, that there's a lightheartedness to it, and the
yes.
silliness and the playfulness.
So
Yeah.
take a cue from your pets. So that's a great tip, and
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
going to do that myself. My kittens still have the kittenness in them even though they're 4 years old, and so does my adult male cat who just turned 10 and was playing with the peacock feather the other day and gave me a nice little scratch on my finger there. So well, I wanted to talk to you about the specific techniques that you use because I'm not familiar with all of them. I am familiar with emotional freedom technique,
Mhm,
EFT or
mhm,
tapping, and I do use that. I've been through EFT levels 1 and 2, and I use it quite often in treating trauma and
mhm.
anxiety, other things in my therapy practice. How do you use emotional freedom technique in the work you do with your clients?
Yes, it's a wonderful technique. And I started using it like 20 years ago before it became more popular. And I'm thrilled that therapists are using it now. It's like the sauce that you can use with anything. You
Mhm.
can use it to calm, relax, detox, trauma release, getting clear on desire.
Mhm.
Just about any time where people are going, you know,
Yeah.
we
The
can
congestion, clear up
get
the
congestion.
congestion.
Yeah. So that we don't have to work so hard. The truth of what needs to be experienced just flows in instead of people having to go out and find it. Well, I think I need to do, like anytime someone says, I think I need to do that, you can tell it's a mental thing instead
Mhm.
of, oh, I just feel more open and relaxed.
Yeah, it works in the acupressure meridian points, and then
Mhm.
it sends the signals to your brain that you're safe, even though you're talking about a problem that you have. And also doing an affirmation. When you said affirmations, I was thinking, well, the way I work with EFT is I don't say the traditional affirmation, which is, even though I have this problem, I deeply and completely love and accept myself, because that will throw probably most of my clients into shock, because it was like, I don't believe that. And it's like all these bells and whistles are going off and they
Mhm.
shut down. So we really spend some time developing the custom affirmation that even though I have this problem, I can appreciate that I have a kind spirit, something
Oh,
that
that's
they can
right.
really sink their teeth into and believe and buy into. And then we work them up to that unconditional love and appreciation of themselves.
I think that's beautiful, and I agree. Sometimes, even though I have this problem, I deeply and complete like people are like, "No, I don't." And so what I sometimes do to get around that resistance is I'll say, "Actually, I don't, but I'm gonna
Mm.
pretend that I do just for now." And then people they laugh, right? Because we make this kind of humorous. Adele's making me say this or whatever, and it just because yeah, you're right. Otherwise, people feel like they're lying to themselves, and then we can acknowledge, well, I don't believe this, but just for the next 5 minutes, let me
Yeah,
see what it feels like. And that
right.
takes some of the pressure off a little bit with a little humor. But I think what you just suggested is wonderful.
Yeah, I do that too sometimes with the whole like, yeah, this looks kind of weird. This
Yeah.
is kind of strange. Or what would that be like? That would be different. And it gets people to move out of the box that they're in and exploring different possibilities. And it does, it switches your energy about things. And I've really found that it affects me in other areas of life. When I first
Mm,
started doing this well, I think it was back in 2007 or 2008, and somebody I knew was going through the certification for EFT, and I started being her test subject, and
mm.
because it was free therapy, and I love that. And all of a sudden, I didn't feel like upset or irritated at people who would like come up on me in traffic and flash their lights. I would say, "Oh, okay, whatever." Like
Yeah.
it was like the
Yeah.
whole energy had been
Yeah.
disconnected over that. I didn't
Mhm.
get nervous or tense or speed up or anything. I would say, "Oh, that's interesting. Figure it out."
Oh,
And
that is beautiful. Yeah, that's a typical result because I think a lot of people aren't aware of how many layers of um, resentment is one of them,
Mhm.
or low level resentment, irritation, anxiety, whatever. You're
Yeah.
not even aware of it. And
Yeah.
so when you use EFT to start releasing stuff around one problem, some of it, I think, just sort of leaks out like a valve. And so there's
Yeah.
the leftover quantity of whatever, it's dropped, and then all of a sudden nothing bothers you anymore. And you didn't even work on irritation with bad drivers.
Exactly. Yeah, it's something that just was what do they call it? A benefit of it.
Yes,
And
borrowing
also
benefit.
as a practitioner, there's that borrowed benefit that you get by
Mhm.
adjusting your own energy, because you're doing the tapping too. I can't say enough about emotional freedom technique, and I don't think I've had any practitioner come on and talk about it. So I wanted to spend a
Oh,
little
it's
bit of
awesome.
time seeing that.
Oh, it's awesome. You could have a whole show on the different ways to tap, and
Mhm.
um, it's an excellent tool. What I encourage people to do is learn the basics for themselves. You can just do it. This is an excellent self-help tool. And then
Mhm.
when you're with, your therapist or with me, or you can actually go deeper. It's more
Yeah.
efficient,
Oh yeah.
and then we can like clear things faster.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard it said that it's kind of like bowling. So you set up the pins really well, and then you put yourself in position, and then you hit that sweet spot. That's what a therapist can help you do with EFT, is that they
Yes.
can really provide that perspective so that you can hit the sweet spot and break down more of that congestion. I love what you
Exactly.
said about EFT being the sauce that you can use with anything. I do
Yeah.
use it in hypnotherapy as well. I with when a person maybe has an reaction during hypnotherapy, I'll
Okay.
always teach them EFT first. So I'll just say, okay, why don't we just do, usually it's the collarbone point. We
Mhm.
usually just have them tap on their collarbone. But yeah, it's really a great tool. I have on my, I should probably put it on my Calming the Chaos website or my Calming the Chaos YouTube page. And it is a couple of videos about EFT I should probably put up there. And or do you have one? You do have a
I
YouTube channel. I know
I
that,
I
right?
do. I do. I don't know if I put anything out there specific on EFT, but I probably should. I mean, there's
Hmm.
my thought is if YouTube already has boatloads of really good stuff on it, you know, um, people can go look at that, but I might as well just do like the basic, the points and
Yeah.
give people some instruction on that. I'm always intrigued with, the more advanced levels that people, once you've mastered that, like
Mhm.
what else can you do with it?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's tons of stuff I'll get to when I have
Yeah,
time to
your
put it on
your
YouTube.
your YouTube channel has quite a few videos on it. I was impressed to look, and the link is down below. Or you could just, I think it's just under the Safe Haven Healing. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I think I put something out on TikTok too. I can't remember.
Mm. We'll
Um,
have some links to her
yeah, yeah.
social media in the notes. Her website is safehavenhealing.net. And we do have some pictures of her website here and the services that Adele offers. She's in Atlanta, and she does a whole variety of energy healing. Can you tell me what sound shamanism is? Does that have anything to do with music at all?
Not really, but it's a way to meditate with certain sounds. They can be it's
Mm.
a relaxation technique and can help clear your mind, whether you want to
Mm.
use crystal balls or water or gongs and
Oh.
just taking a bath of that can it's lovely. It's like a
Oh.
spa treatment. Yeah.
Well, here is what your website looks like. It says, "Hi, I'm Adele. I help smart, intuitive, perfectionist women create happiness and success in an imperfect world." I love that mission statement. Do you want to say a little bit about your website and services that you offer at
Sure. Yeah.
safehavenhealing.net?
Yeah, I'm very open to communicating with people. I like to be very approachable. If you want to talk with me, just hit me up for a conversation. I like to hear what's going on with people. I'll get a pretty good sense if I can help them or not. If I don't think I can help, I like to refer out. What's your unique situation? I do have some things coming up that are specific around energy and chaos for women, around the feminine sensuality. There's one coming up in November, Introduction to Spark Your Feminine Presence. That one is a very popular class. So if people are interested, I would say jump on in because
Mm.
once I hit the limit, everybody will go on a waiting list. I do them, a few times a year. And there's some people who really want to master energy and presence. Like
Mm.
these 5 levels of energy, like you need time, you need a guide, you need a method to work through them. It's not possible to understand energy out of a book. It
Mm.
just isn't. I mean, I wish I could just write a book or give everybody a pill and say, there it is. But the nature of energy, at least for the community that I serve, so much of it is relational.
Mm.
And you can't fix relational stuff by yourself.
Right.
I mean, you just can't. And so, if once upon a time someone looked at you sideways and hurt your self esteem when you were 5, and we need to like rewire that again.
Mm.
Even if you have an issue around that, the only way my experience has been the fastest way is to be in community.
Mm.
Healing must be in community, a good community. And that's what I try to provide because a lot of women are sort of trained to be very uber independent.
Mm.
Like I can figure this out all by myself and I'm lonely as dirt, kind of like I was. So I had to learn how to be in community. I didn't know what it was like. I had no idea. I thought, well, I'm smart. I try to help people. And I had no idea of the dance between people. That was
Now,
like a huge blind spot for me. Yeah.
now, do your events offer the community that you speak of
Yes.
in a
Yeah.
sense? Okay, so you would go on to your website at
Yeah. Let me see if I
safehavenhealing.net
can.
and click on events, right?
Right. There's one called Introduction to Spark Your Feminine Presence. It's going to be November 13th. I'll send you the link. You can
Mm-hmm.
put it in the show notes or something. I open it a few times a year. They always fill up. So if people are interested, jump on in. But there's no other way to understand energy other than to experience it. And that's why, we do our best in books or demos or YouTube channel or a podcast, but ultimately it's an immersive experience. What do you feel in your body? Where did your
Mm-hmm.
aura go when someone is talking to you? And one of the most important things people need, I feel like, in understanding energy and the chaos is, what is your energy saying to other people? Like, most people
Absolutely.
have no idea. You need the feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Because you might think you're coming across a certain way. Like, I thought I was the bomb. I thought I was, no, people could feel through that.
Well, yeah, and your one of your philosophies is that energy is related to spirituality, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, well, that question of like, what is your energy saying to people could have a spiritual component to it as
Hmm.
well. And I guess when I think of it, I think of fear being like one of the lower vibrational frequencies that a person can have, and love being one of the highest, right? So
Right. Right.
you know that you see a person in fear and you see a person in love, and it's totally different energies, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We think we are fooling people. I'll be honest. We think we're pretty clever. We think we can see other people's energies, right? But we think we're so smart that everyone else has, we fooled everyone. And maybe you fooled some people, but you're
Mm,
not going to fool everybody all the time. And especially yourself. So if
yeah.
you fooled yourself on your own energy, that's why you're manifesting the same kind of men over and over, or you have an issue with money, or like something is going on that you cannot see. And some of it is going to be cognitive, my belief about money or whatever. But a lot of it is, where's your sensual energy?
Hmm.
And that requires understanding the body. That requires, like, how do you move? Or when you're in a party, where do you go? Do you disappear into the curtains? Is your
Hmm.
energy blasting the room? Do you go up into outer space? And we do certain practices that will help people see, oh my gosh, that's what I do. And then it's
Right.
like, then the aha. And then it's like, okay, now we know. Let's practice rewiring it differently so that people can actually feel you when they're talking to you.
Hmm. That's fantastic. I love that work, and the whole party analogy too. Like maybe you have energy about being at that party in the first place. So you're there
Mhm.
and it's like,
Yeah,
I really don't want to be here. So people are going to pick up on that,
people are gonna
right?
pick up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on your website, you have some a blog too, and I've read through some of your blog posts are really super smart, and you're a little edgy and smart, and I love your blogs, and I love the titles of your blogs, like "Don't Fall into Spiritual Gymnastics." They're
Mhm.
really super catchy and draws the reader in. Do you want to say anything about your blogs or your blog
Oh,
posts?
I can be a little snarky, and because, I wrote those when I was in an edgy mood, and I put it out there. I never imagined people would read them. But, on the internet, it takes off because I was tired of the false positivity tone of certain types of coaching, like, "Well, just do this and everything will be great." And I'm like, "This is not easy." Being human. And I have found that for me, if I can just share how I am, imperfect and all, people can relate and they don't feel like they have to, I don't know, pretend a certain way. So,
Mhm.
no, I'm very much not wanting to be miss false positivity, or, hey, figure yourself out in 30 days or less, or
Right.
and all that. It's like, but this is worth it, everybody. I mean,
Hmm.
what else are you going to spend your time doing? Right.
Right.
And one thing I talk to clients all the time, especially when they say they're really busy. I'm like, well, you know, is this type of inner exploration, is it worth the time? Like, you want to put your activities, your energy, your focus, your money, everything into what matters the most. And for some people, this is not their thing. They're more comfortable with distraction than growth. And I'm like, great, call me back in 6 months. They're not ready, right? Other people have said, no, I'm ready. And I'm like, okay, where are you spending your time? If it's only on Netflix or YouTube, maybe let's move some of that time into this bucket.
Mm,
And yeah, so
yeah.
it's a matter of priorities because everyone's got the same amount of time and we get one life. Let's make it a good one.
Some people believe that we have more than one, especially the
Right.
woo-woo people, right?
Yeah, yeah. And, well, I interviewed a lady the other day who talked about animals being reincarnated.
Mhm.
I thought that was cool.
Right. I have somebody that I have worked with who says that you have one pet your whole entire life. Their spirit just moves from animal to animal. So,
Oh, wow.
it's so creative and rich, just the experience of working with people and this whole idea of energy. And yes, so
Yeah.
Adele is she's edgy and she's authentic. She's the real deal.
Oh,
She's
this is
not going to
good.
sugarcoat it.
Well, I like to have fun, and because this was what helped me. I was not someone who could be fluffed out of my sadness. I sort of needed humor. I needed engagement. I needed intellectual curiosity. Because that of the way I was, I had to have all these pieces instead of just be happy. Like that. That just wasn't working for me. I need a little bit of intellectual. I need something to laugh at. I need a little bit of body work. I need to understand sensuality. And so I'm here to serve people who need that combination because reading books, whew, I mean, they're good, but we need community and dancing too.
Now, is this what the art of feminine
Yeah.
presence in Atlanta? Okay, so there is what you could actually become a part of that.
And here's the thing, it's remote now. I mean, it says Atlanta, but it's the last 2 years have been strictly Zoomified. So you don't have to be in Atlanta, and it works beautifully. I've got people from Paris, Montreal, it doesn't
Mm,
matter.
mm,
I keep the group small and intimate, but it's for you if you want more purpose and meaning, you want to understand your feminine energy, and you're tired of the grind.
mhm.
Yeah.
And you're okay with being Zoomified because I think that you just coined a new word that I'd never heard before, but I like
Let's
it.
Zoomify. We have to do the best we can right now. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know about where you are, but right now is not the best time to have people in a room. Over
Mm.
here anyway.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, we'd have to socially distance and have a big, or we'd have to do it outdoors, and it's getting a little cold.
It's
So
getting yeah.
there's barriers, right? There's barriers or congestion that we'd have to sort out. But Zoomified seems to be working for a lot of people. And if it helps create community and you're still able to do it,
I'm all for it.
that's great. Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Is there anything else you'd like to say in closing? Again, thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Adele. It was great having you here.
Oh, I have enjoyed this conversation. I can't, I'm going to listen to it and then cringe at myself. I don't like the way I sound,
Ooh.
but no, I enjoy these conversations.
Mm,
These are conversations worth having. So if
mm,
you're out there listening to this podcast, just enjoy, savor it. It's not so much the data that matters. It's the vibe. It's the something's possible. And this series can help you open to maybe this, maybe that. And that's how we all create community and keep going.
yes, absolutely. And visit her YouTube channel as well. She's got a lot of really cool things on
Yeah,
it. This is what it looks
yeah.
like. It's
Join me.
Yeah. got a lot of really good
Join
videos.
me. TikTok is fun too because they're shorter. So,
Yeah.
YouTube has the long form stuff, but join me on TikTok and some of the stuff is really wacky and some of it is more serious,
I
Yeah.
know. I'm totally going to find you on TikTok now because I can just imagine what you've produced there. But we'll have those social links in the description, in the YouTube, and or in the show notes. So, thank you once again, Adele, for
Thank you
joining
for
us
having
today
me.
and helping us learn about energy, another way to calm the chaos.
Thank you for having me. I love this conversation. I love what you're doing with your podcast. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to Calming the Chaos podcast. If the information in this podcast has been helpful, please consider subscribing and share it with your friends. You can find this podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Music, Spotify, and on YouTube. You can also go to our podcast website at www.calmingthechaospodcast.com, where you can listen to all Calming the Chaos podcasts. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to sharing my next podcast episode with you. In the meantime, take care.